Hello, 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 and welcome back to the Bounce Back Entrepreneur Series, where we feature business owners who have overcome their rock bottom to build back to success on their terms. Our next guest story starts way back as a teenager in high school. And as we fast forward to her early professional days, she's working in the medical field and studying to be a nurse when complications of a rare disabling eye condition and a devastating diagnosis, punctuated by her doctors telling her, "Go home and go blind," threatened to sideline her for the rest of her life. Faced with the possibility of losing her identity, her income, her career, and future for her young son, this military kid knew she wanted to do something to contribute back to her family. My guest today is Cori Fonville Foster, the CEO of IROC Marketing Solutions, which supports small business owners that have great products and services. However, they don't have the knowledge or the funds to scale like the bigger businesses. This conversation is about as real as it gets, and I know you'll be inspired to take another look at what you're doing and discover areas where what seemed impossible may now be possible on your own terms. So grab your notebook, buckle up tight, and let's dive into my conversation with Cori. Normally my guests are a little bit older than you, and that is fantastic because I'm a huge researcher. I rarely come away with only one sheet of research. So we got some digging to do here. Find
Cool.
out how you got to be where you are and where you're going. So let's start off with your story because I think you are very much like my friend, and looking when people see you, they don't know that you are legally blind. Is that correct?
Yeah, most of the time people don't notice unless I have a walking cane because
Mm-hmm.
of the condition I have. There are most of the time I don't need the cane. Usually it's when I'm having a flare up and I'm out in a place I've never been before, like traveling. And so a lot of times if you see me like at an airport, you'll see me with the cane. Or if I'm in a big new city, like we went to Philadelphia, and it was like, okay, let me grab it because I'm not from there. But usually people don't see me with the cane. And oftentimes I have glasses on because I need them to see a little bit better for distance. And so people just assume I'm like everybody else. And so I should say, if I need to tell them, they're a bit shocked and like, oh, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're just a little shocked by it. But yeah, most people just from a glance don't know that I'm legally blind at all.
I actually have two friends. One is, I would say, she is legally blind, but she's functionally legally blind, and I hope that's uh, an okay term to you. She described it to me like taking three Ziploc bags and putting them one on top of each other, and then putting them in front of her eyes. That's how she sees things, with that kind of haze and muddle and stuff like that. So is that similar to you, or it's not
It
quite as
depends.
many?
Yeah, it just depends. And I think for most people who are legally blind, it's such a spectrum. And I think it to make it what people can understand easily, just like you talk about autism and it's a spectrum and you can meet somebody with autism who is very typical, and I use that with quotes, and then you wouldn't know, but then all the way to the person where you're like, okay, they're nonverbal. That's how big of a spectrum of blindness is. And the term legally blind just means that, and it's not all over the world that they even use that term, because I've been on a UK podcast and they're like, we don't use that term.
Right.
But it's just in America, it just means that you have reached a standard of vision that's so low that the government acknowledges that you may need some additional support. That's really all that legally blind means. People can get to the point, and I've even gotten to the point where I can't see faces. Everything is just like blobs, all the way to I can drive and things like that. And so I find that most people who are legally blind stay in a certain space, but my condition is very rare, in which I literally from day to day can have good days and bad days, and I can drive today and then not be able to read my text tomorrow. So it's different. But I think most of us will say that there is a bit of haze or fog or distortion or blurriness that impedes us to be able to see clearly.
So what is the condition that you have? What is it called? How does it typically progress? When did you find out?
Yeah, so the condition I have is called uveitis. There's different types. I have what's called chronic pan uveitis. Basically, chronic meaning that I've had it for a continuous time longer than 6 months. I actually got diagnosed in high school. Pan uveitis just means it affects my whole eye. Some people can have anterior uveitis where it's just in the front. Some people can have acute uveitis, meaning they just got it for a short time. I know, like, not trying to scare anybody, but some people got COVID and then they ended up with an acute version of uveitis and then they were fine. Uveitis usually presents because of a systemic autoimmune condition. So, like lupus, arthritis, something like that. That's the majority of people. Now, it's a rare condition, so don't think it's like everybody, but it's a rare condition. And within that condition, most people have it because of an autoimmune issue. And so, once the underlying autoimmune issue is treated, they are pretty much in remission. It's cleared up. I have the fun one that's of the rarest of the rare, which is idiopathic, meaning they don't know what causes mine, so they can't treat the underlying condition. So that's why mine just fluctuates over time because my doctors only have the ability to treat the symptoms. Thus, the prognosis is always up in the air of how my condition will progress because it really just depends on how many flare ups I have, and they can come for any reason at all. Stress does typically flare up my personal uveitis, but it can happen for any reason, and depending on the severity and what things we can do to lessen the symptoms depends on that quality of vision that I'm going to have. So I'm now 35, even though I tell everybody I'm 25, but I'm now 35. And so we don't know how long I will have the vision I currently have or any vision at all.
So I have a question. How did you get diagnosed? Because I read something in some of the research that I did that initially you were diagnosed a certain way, and then you actually took control of your, this is an amazing thing, took control of your own life, got rid of your medical advisors and found a whole new team. And there's a little bit of a segue here. So I love to hear that story.
Yeah, so I was diagnosed in high school. So obviously, I wasn't in charge of my care. My mom took me to the eye doctor after I think I said something like my eyes were kind of getting blurry. The team, they did what doctors do. They examined me, they diagnosed me with uveitis, they gave me lots of drops and sent me on my way. Me being a teenager, not really being told the details of my condition. Sometimes I took the drops, sometimes I didn't. And then in high school, I ended up having to have cataract surgery because what they didn't tell us was one of the side effects of taking the drops was that you could develop a cataract. So as a 11th grader, I had my first cataract surgery. I was in a room full of senior citizens and just little old me in high school, and I had that surgery. Now, again, what they don't tell you is that one of the things that can happen after cataract surgery is you can develop glaucoma. So I went on to college after that surgery as an 18-year-old, partying, having a good time. And I should say that originally when I got diagnosed, it was only in my left eye. So my other eye was 20/20. So you're partying, everything is great, not noticing a difference until one day I closed my right eye for whatever reason and realized I could not see. I couldn't see anything.
Wow.
I was like, what is going on? So I went home on one of my breaks. I went and saw again those same doctors, and they were like, "Oh, you ended up with glaucoma, which is like a pressure issue, and it had crushed my optic nerve, literally rendering my left eye useless. I'm completely blind in my left eye. I can't see light, shapes, anything." And they basically told me there was nothing that can be done because once your optic nerve is crushed, it is crushed. Now, again, we're talking about US. I have heard that in other countries, maybe there's some new things coming out, but in the US currently, if your optic nerve is crushed, it's done.
Right.
And so that was really frustrating. But they told me at the time, well, since that's done and that's the only eye you had uveitis in, go about your life. And if you need us in the future, let us know. And it wasn't until I think I was 23 that I started having vision issues again. Went back to those same doctors, and they were like, "Oh, shocking! You have uveitis in the other eye," even though they had kind of told me I probably would never develop it on the other side. And long story short, what ended up happening, to kind of go into what you were saying, is they basically told me that there was nothing really they could do. My eyes were too angry, they said. And basically, they told me after loads of tests and getting pushed back and pushed back for them not wanting to do anything, they said, go home and go blind. I had a young son at the time. I was in a committed relationship. I was in school to be a registered nurse. I was a full-time employee. And it really devastated me to hear not only they couldn't do anything for me, but to go home and go blind. No resources, no pamphlet, no pat on the
Wow.
back, no crying, shoulder to cry on, nothing. They were very just nonchalant about the whole ordeal, something that really tremendously shook my life. And I always tell people, I wish I would have just said, because people see me now, they're like, you're confident. And I'm like, I wish I would have, been able to say, oh, I told them to go like kick rocks, and I'm gonna be fine. But I didn't. I went home and cried and was sad for about 6 months and just kind of gave up. But then eventually I did. I fired those doctors, like you were talking about,
Yeah.
and I found and hired a new team. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to fire your doctors. They work for you. But I found a new team who were willing to bet on me, to work with me, and they were able to do an emergency surgery to give me back some vision. And like I said, it's a continuous thing. I still have my new team that I found, and together we stay on top of my condition. I've had several surgeries since then. I've had eye shots since then. I'm on a injectable that I actually do. It's called Humira, twice a month now, drops, the whole gambit. But I'm just happy that I was able to find doctors who are willing to try for me.
Yeah, and I think that's so important for, it doesn't matter whether it's your medical health or anything, is to find a team that really gets you and doesn't give up. Because I'm 30 years older than you, and I can tell you that the medical advances that you are going to see in your lifetime are going to be mind boggling. Like anybody that gets the kind of diagnosis that you have, like literally for anything in your body failing, the reality is in the next 50 years, we'll be like a Lego set. You'll be able to just, take them out, replace them with something that's new. I'm always reading articles and stuff on 3D printing of body parts and stuff like that. It's like, how does that work? Because my mind doesn't always work that way. But if you don't have the right team behind you, if they don't see your vision, if they don't see your potential, if they're not willing to look in other areas, like, it's so simple to say, okay, this doesn't work. Well, what if you had a team that said, maybe if you ate more avocados, it might help, that type of thing. Not saying that avocados would help, but that is as an example. Tell me more about your childhood, because other than the fact that I know that in high school you wrestled, you cheerleaded, and you did drama, don't know much about you. So tell me about Cori as a child.
Wow, we're gonna take it
We're
back there.
going way back.
Oh, well, so Corey is a child. So I am native to Virginia. I was raised mostly by my grandmother. My mother entered into the army when I was about 3. But then when I was maybe 7 or 8, she came back, got me and my grandmother, and I was able to travel a lot as a kid. So we were stationed in Texas and Fort Hood, Texas. I don't know if it's still called Fort Hood, but we were in Texas. We were in Hawaii. We were in Germany, and then we came back here to Virginia. So I did all that to come right back to Virginia, and that's where I reside now. I think for me, if I had to kind of sum up my childhood, it would just be a lot of exploration. I was a very inquisitive child, a very determined child, and so I tried out a lot of things. I did track, I did gymnastics, I danced for many, many years. I did a lot of like volunteer organization things. So I did 4-H. I also was into art, so I've done drama and all the other things. And I think that the kind of thread that ties everything together was I always really just like to help other people. And so I love being a part of groups. I get that some people are introverts and they like to be alone, but I thrive in community. It's like an addictive trait of mine. I think everybody has their thing. And I'm like, I love being in groups where I can help other people and grow as an individual. And so throughout my childhood, while I didn't know that was my passion at the time, I definitely see that trend of me finding ways to be with other people that I could support.
I have my daughter and son-in-law are just north of you in Baltimore. He's career military. She's Canadian. He's American. He's career military, getting ready to retire in a year. So he's been in since he was 18. And when you say you thrive in community, sometimes you see of children who are in the military families where they're moving around. There's either an isolation because they're constantly moving, or there's that thriving, that yearning for being in community, because your community keeps changing. And
Mhm.
so do you think that has something to do with it?
Yeah, definitely. Because you have to, it's like sink or swim. Either you get saddened by the fact that you're moving and you're losing friends, or you get excited about the potential to make new friends and to have new experiences. And I think for me, I was always the latter. I always wanted to meet the new people. I was never really afraid to be the new kid in school. I was like, okay, cool, a new time to reinvent myself, a
Yeah.
new time to make new friends and make new connections and try out something different. Maybe I was like the emo kid at this school, now I'm the popular, cheerleader in this school. And I had a good time just being able to pivot and learn, right? Trial and error. If you're in middle school in one place and you're stuck there and you have an accident, then everybody knows you as that. But me, I just got to keep changing and nobody knew me and I could just start fresh every single time. And I think that was what I look forward to the most.
Exactly. So I know, but this is way back a little bit. But did you go to school on the bases or in the off base schools?
Both. So in Texas, I was off base. In Hawaii, I was on base, and in Germany, I was trying to think. I think I was on base. So yeah, I'm like different places, but yeah, it just depended. It was just depended on what the base offered. I know, for instance, in Hawaii, I lived on one base, but I went to school on a different one because there was no middle school in the base where I lived.
Yeah,
So
I know.
I remember that.
I know that one intimately because my son and daughter-in-law, he was posted to. You were in Honolulu, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so he was posted there, and they lived off base in Koalina, north up in where the Disney Resort is up there. But kids, my my youngest grandchild, he was born in Hawaii, so he went to daycare at the base there, and at the main base, the one with the what are those donuts they have in Hawaii? Those things you can get it's like a chip wagon, but you get the donuts, the deep fried dough that are like absolutely delicious and not good for you. But she would drive him there, and my granddaughter would go to public school, elementary school off base nearby. So I know where the other base is in relation. So that is very cool. It's for me when I went to visit them, it was like dropping into the set of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're there, and I know it was probably yours was a lot longer ago. For me, it was about seven years ago. But because they were there, it was a great opportunity. It's really inexpensive to fly from Canada to Hawaii. Bizarrely enough, it's less expensive to fly to Hawaii than it is to fly to Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So that's cool. So single mom or two parent family.
I was raised single mom.
Yeah,
My
single mom,
dad,
grandma.
yeah, yeah, single mom and grandma. And my dad, I saw him in things like that. It's just, yeah, it just wasn't that type of household. Like, that wasn't the people in my household typically.
Yeah, and are you an only child? Do you have brothers, sisters?
That's always a trick question. So I was raised as an only child for the most part. I do have half siblings and step siblings. So I do consider myself having siblings. But yeah, I was raised mostly alone with my mom. And then she got married when I was in high school. And he came with two bonus kids to my mom, who at least one time or another lived in our household when I was a teenager.
Right. Well, I have a brother and sister, and there are days I'd like to say I'm an only child too. Cool. That is absolutely awesome. So in looking, I see that this business that you have right now, it is not your first business, right? You had a soap business. Is
I
that
call
where you
it a
started?
TLC business. It was more about like self-care. So I did handmade soaps, I did bath bombs, bath salts, body butters, oils, healing salves. It was just like, what can you do to relax? I sold
Hmm.
that. And everything was handmade. I made the recipes, I did everything, and it was a good first business adventure because I got to learn about products, making products, developing products, marketing products, selling products, and it was really cool because I was very hands on with my audience in that way. And I think it was just a great stepping stone for me to give me like the foundations of business.
So how did you decide to do that one first?
Well, during that time period back when I was told like to go home and go blind, I was really devastated, not just in my decline, like my sight decline, but also in the fact that I have been like one of those 50-50 type women. Like my man makes 50% of the money, I do too. And so me losing that part of my identity, losing that I don't want to say power, but power, because right, that's the way relationships are, the power dynamic. Losing that really shook my self identity. And so I said, I got to do something. Like, I know I'm not going to, make what I was making as, at the job I had before going out and going for disability, but I wanted to do something to contribute back to my family. And so my mom had been a vendor. She had like a little craft business. And I was like, okay, well, I could vend. I could go out and sell something. I was just like, what can I sell though? And so I
Mhm.
figured I was like, I could learn to do soaps and things. And so I started kind of small. I think I did soaps and candles first. And then I just started building and building as I, perfected my recipes. And that was kind of my intro into that. It's because she was already doing the events. I was like, hey, how do I sign up? Will you drive me? Because I can't drive. And she did. She drove me. We packed up our tents and things. And she helped me with like, people pay. We had two booths next to each other. She would help me with that when I couldn't see. And I could talk about the products really well. And I was able to make some decent money coming in to support my family.
And that's you had a word in there, contribution. Contribution is such an important thing for people and their self-worth and their self-identity, whether you're male, whether you're female, whether you're trans, anything like that. It's that internal desire to feel value. You're giving value to your family. And so often we look at that from a money perspective. I talk a lot about this in my programs that, people, they come at it either from a very warped perspective where they go in and someone makes $30,000, the other one makes 150 or something like that. And the one making 150 says, well, we want to split things 50-50, or the other one says we want to split it 50-50 because I want to feel valuable. I want to feel that I'm contributing, but it's financially inequitable. And they devalue the other things that person is doing within the household dynamic. And so that's not surprising that that was the first thing, because we want to feel that we have value. And
Absolutely.
yes, and what's interesting, I talk to a lot of women. A lot of women tend to start their first business in the health and wellness, quote unquote, self-care, as a bit of a healing journey. That
Mhm.
tends to be where their first step is. Did you find that, well, obviously you started right after your 6 months, so it was part of your healing journey, is that right?
It helped give me a sense of purpose, but also because I had doctors who didn't give me resources, I felt really just like alone and trying to figure this thing out. They didn't even tell me there were organizations and agencies that could offer me support. So I literally was like, oh, okay, I'm blind, I can't do anything, and I'm gonna be blind forever, like this is it. And so they didn't give me any assistance on reading, walking, nothing. I was literally just trying to figure everything out until this gave me a push to realize that there was so much more I could do. Because in my mind, I'm now like an invalid. Like I can't do anything. Like I was,
Yeah.
it's just like I can't cook, nothing. But it gave me the mindset of like, wait a minute, I can do some things. Maybe I can do more things than I think I can. And it opened up the world to me. It made me start saying, okay, let me do some research. Hold on now. Let me see what else is out here. Let me get with some new people and let me figure out what I actually can achieve even in my current situation.
So what is your first go-to when it comes to research? Do you have a particular tool? Do you have a place that you go? Where would, if someone in the audience is listening and saying, okay, where do I start? Where would you point them?
So, like, first of all, I'm a millennial. We'll say there because I noticed that there's differences depending on what age range you are. But when I first was looking for hope and resources, I'm gonna say hope because I really needed to see what other people were doing. I went to YouTube University,
Mhm.
like
I,
YouTube. I did, and I went and I looked for people like me.
yep.
That was
You
my first go-to. And I think nowadays I use more TikTok because it's easier to find people that look like me. And it just opened my eyes, like, what are they using? Oh, they're using this for a computer, and they're using this to walk, and they're using this. Okay, what organization? They would tag their resources, or they have an Amazon cart, and I'm like, okay, I'm buying up everything. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm calling people and I'm trying to figure out how can I get that service. And again, it just opened up a whole new world of possibilities for me.
YouTube University. It is the most amazing acronym for what you can get off YouTube.
Yes.
I am not a millennial. I am a boomer, but I am a tech boomer. I have always been a tech boomer. I'm self-taught. When someone says, well, boomers or Gen Z and stuff, they don't know how to do this. It's like, seriously? I have a TikTok account. I just haven't moved any of the YouTube pieces into shorts to move them across, but it is. And
Okay.
that I know you assumed, right? But it, it's really and truly understanding that the places that you can go that are search engines that are set up that way that can point you to the right resource. And obviously when you can, you can go and find people that are like you, whether they're purple or green or older or younger, but they have a similar situation and they've got stuff. And you pointed out something that so many people in online businesses and stuff, it's that missed gold, is that tagging stuff. If you love it, if it's working for you, tag it so other people can find it. Put in the links, put in all that sort of stuff. I love hearing that, and I love your enthusiasm. Another question that I have: when I did the research, now I could be wrong because obviously I might have missed something, but nothing in your background says business. It really, when people traditionally they look for, is there a business education? Is there this? But you decided that you were going to go back to school from nursing because you couldn't read labels and stuff like that, to go into marketing in university. Is that correct? Or not, or college? I'm not sure which one, but
Yeah, so I was already in the medical field initially when I got my diagnosis. Well, not my diagnosis, but when I flared, I was currently working as a medical assistant. That's what my degree's in. And I was in school, almost finished. I was like 3 credits away from being a registered nurse before I left to go on disability. It hurts still to say that. But once I started doing business, I did not choose to go back and get a degree, honestly, because it wasn't needed. Like, you're a self-taught tech person. I lived and breathed business because I had to. I really wanted to be successful. And so the amount of time and effort I put into it probably equals a master's degree, to be honest, because I'm constantly studying. Anytime you are in an industry, you have to be someone who's willing to learn and grow for life. And so I'm always taking new courses. I'm always investing in coaching. I'm always looking for new certifications and things like that. So I did go and get certified as a business coach once I started my second business and kind of really realized that's kind of where I wanted to go. But outside of that, I did not ever go back to school to do marketing, to do business management, hospitality, like none of that. I am definitely somebody who's learned along the way. And I think that that is part of my differentiator, like my uniqueness. People come to me because they don't want to go back to school to learn business. They want somebody who can show them how to get where they want to go from where they are now. And I literally started at the bottom with knowing nothing to where I am now, where I own a small business marketing firm that supported people, business owners all over the country, into Canada. I have a few Canada clients as well. Um,
awesome.
yes, y'all are awesome. Y'all are just so low key, like chill. I love it.
Yep.
But yeah, so I've been able to do that. So if you're going to school for business now, kudos to you, don't drop out. But it's not necessary to go to school to, do business just to have a successful business.
I love that. That is going to be one of my cutouts out of the video interview, because so many people need to hear that. Yes, there are people who believe that you are only good enough to be a coach or train and stuff if you got specific letters behind your name and stuff like that. And there are other people who believe in the experiential side of it. I am about 90% experience. I believe in 90% experiential with a little bit of stuff.
Mhm.
But again, if you were to stereotype certain generations, my people in my generation, we were raised thinking that you had to have those letters behind your name and stuff like that, and it's BS. It's total BS. So it's important to hear it from all the different generations that there are ways to be successful both financially and both personally, whether you have the letters behind or not. What you do need is you do need to have that growth mindset. You need to be open. You need to be learning. You need to be in the right rooms. So you've said that a couple of times. I found the people that I wanted to be around, and that is so important. I'm happy to hear that. So another question, so we flip flop a little bit here. Your team, what's your team look like today with your current business?
So we're still considered a small business. I am the CEO, and then I have a pretty much we're just gonna call her a full time assistant. She's an executive assistant, and she helps me with the day to day operation. She makes sure that I don't lose my mind and that I stay focused and that nobody falls through the cracks. Outside of that, we have a team of freelancers, some of which are on a pretty consistent basis, others of which we just outsource as needed. And that's been the way that we've been able to scale in a very affordable way. I always tell people we did not start business very traditionally in that we had tons of savings and capital and investors. Thus, because of that, we have to scale the way that makes sense for us. So freelancers allows us the flexibility to be able to pay for projects versus having staff that's hourly that we're having to do all the bells and whistles for, such as paying for, their 401. I get to work with people all over the world, which is really great. I can pull from some really great experts. So that's currently my team. I do see in the future the team building probably some more assistants. I know we're about to start a VA branch to our business to offer VA services. So there will be more, but what are we, 5, 6 years in, somewhere in there? Our team is pretty good. I'm happy with it.
Excellent. So your freelancers and so on, are they all US based, or are they all over the world?
All over. I have a few that are in the US, and then I have some UK. Where are they? UK, India, Philippines, Pakistan. I've even had some that I've sourced from different countries in Africa. It literally, I am one of those people like, can you do the job? Can you do the
Yep.
job? Cool. And sometimes we stay up late to talk. Sometimes we get up early in the morning to talk. And actually, it's harder for my people that are like in California because I have to wait for them. The other people are waiting for me. But my
Yep.
California people, I'm like, I'm ready to go to sleep. But yeah, we make it work. We make it work. Technology is our friend, and yeah, we do really good business all over the world.
Yeah, and that's for people who've had physical based businesses that aren't familiar with the online world. They don't know they don't know how robust that resource source is, whether they come out of all those different areas, the Philippine VAs, that they creeping up a little bit in price? Absolutely, but their quality in many cases is superior, and the work
Yes.
ethic is high. I have a coach that had her team. They have a big team out of Egypt which does stuff. But India, Pakistan, I use VAs in various different areas in my business as well. And although I love the idea that it's only worked in a certain capacities, to be that far different on time zone for me. I've managed offices where they were in Sydney, where it's like a 12-hour shift, but when it's a little bit odd. Philippines hasn't worked well for me, but South America has
Yeah, you
in
have to
there.
figure
So
out what works best. I am a night owl, but I'm also willing to like because we don't have to talk all the time, like via
no,
Zoom.
definitely
So
not.
it works out for me because we'll say, okay, we meet once a month maybe, and I'm like, all right, I'll stay up late, or I'll get up early. We'll figure it out. But yeah, not all the time. So I wouldn't say like if you're getting like an executive assistant or like your main person, have somebody that's closer either to you. Like I say, my assistant has to live in my state. We need
Mhm.
to be able to meet. Like sometimes, usually during the year, she's in office 3 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week. So she needs to be here. She needs to speak really good English. She needs to understand the US because we're just a different breed. We got
Yeah,
some issues over here that make sometimes the way we say things have to be a certain way. So she's like that gatekeeper to make sure we're not going to get out here and get in trouble for anything. But everybody else, like I said, we have that flexibility. But I would say my assistant has to be in person. I should be able to high five her, and everybody else can be virtual, and that's fine.
Yeah. So have you read Gino Wickman's book Traction at
I
all?
haven't.
That's a book that for sure you would be interested in because it talks about the difference. It's fundamentally the difference between the visionary, which is you, and the what they call the integrator in the online world. The integrator being the person who looks after everything other than the vision, all the back end systems and so on. It's a very interesting way to look at things, and it works very well in online type businesses. And if you look at many of the very successful businesses, if you look at the top two people, they do hold a visionary view, because us as visionaries, we can throw things off track pretty easily with all these ideas and
Mhm.
stuff like that. So it's a good book to. There's Traction, and there's another book he has, but it's Gino Wickman. I'll put the links in the show notes and I'll send it to you. Great to read, and then it helps you find the people. It's all about getting the right people into the right seats on the school bus. You might have the right people in there, but they're just in the wrong seats, and so on, letting people shine. So that's super cool. I read something about a story. You're married now, right? You have three
Yes.
kids. Is that right?
Yes and no. Here, that's always. I never have yes or no answers. It's
Yes
always
and
like
no.
in the
Some
middle.
days I have two. Some days I have one. Some days I have three.
Yes, I think I've decided that I'm gonna say three from now on. But I am married. I have one biological child. His name's a tree. He's awesome. Not that the other kids are, but I always like to say I like my kid because I'm not a kid person, but I like him. He's cool. But my grandmother actually adopted two kids, and they basically, because look, she's a boomer too, and as they've gotten older, she's like, okay, these kids are teenagers now, so they're here a lot.
Yeah.
And they hang with us because they'll keep her on her toes. So if you see me out in the street, I probably will have three children, and you can just assume that they're mine because that's how I view them. But yeah, so three kids. We've decided here and today, exclusive. Three children for now and forevermore. But yeah, I do. I'm married, three kids. We homeschool two of them, and one is in public school. And people always think that's so interesting.
Yeah. And why did you choose to homeschool them?
So we started with one of the girls, and she was in I think she was in fifth grade at the time. Because she's a twin in our area, when one twin gets accepted into a program, they automatically put the sibling. And so her twin is a very studious child. So she got into a really advanced school, and the other twin, who we now homeschool, was not a very studious child. She has very amazing other gifts, but school was not one. And so she really was getting left behind and discouraged. And when we realized that she thought that she was, in her words, dumb or couldn't learn, we decided the best thing to do was to pull her out and to make sure that we caught her back up, and also that we put confidence back into her, because she wasn't dumb. She just wasn't able to learn at the speed and in the way that the other kids were learning. And like I said, she has so many other amazing gifts. She's amazing at selling things. That's what the girl like. She gonna be out here selling. She gonna be rich somehow. But she's great. She's a caring person. Anytime I've had surgery, she's been like my little nurse. She is so funny. She might be a comedian one day, but she's amazing. She's just not a good test taker. And, that's okay. So we
Yep.
homeschooled her first. And then my son is a gifted child. He was in the first grade when we pulled him out. His school was just overcrowded. It was like 35 kids in a classroom. He was in the first grade. He could already read, write. He was super advanced. And the kids in his class were not, there was only like one or two kids other than him that were at his level. And so he got bored, which any parent who knows what happens when your child gets bored, behavioral issues. So
Yeah.
I was constantly at the school, and I begged them, like, can we skip him up a grade? And they basically told me, hey, we know he's smart. We're not worried about his grades at all, but we're not going to move him up because emotionally he's not ready. So I said, okay, well, we're going to pull him out because this kid who used to love school and to love to learn is starting to get discouraged because he feels like he's always in trouble and he's not learning anything, and he says he hates school. So we pulled him out, and now he's amazing. So he's 11 now. And I just was at a college fair asking them about dual enrollment because I think this next year will probably be his last year in middle school. So in the next couple of years, he'll be in college. so so yeah, it's like pull these kids out. And the other one who's in public school is fine there. No need to pull her out. She's doing great. She got accepted into a STEM program at a high school here, and she's doing fine. So each kid needed a different thing.
Well, I think that's important. I have my son who's 42 is dyslexic, and so I understand that whole thing. He's old enough that when he was in grade 2, 3, when he was first diagnosed with that, they were just starting to see dyslexia as something other than a mental issue. And so self-confidence was a big thing. My grandson, my youngest grandson, who's here, he has just been diagnosed as being dyslexic. But again, very, very smart kids, but the wrong learning environment. And that homeschool, especially if you add on that experiential homeschooling where it's not, where they're not stuck doing just exactly the same schoolwork, but at home where you're adding on those extra things. These guys, they thrive in that scenario. But if you don't catch it, the self-worth can go down so quickly. So I have a question. Tell me a story about your husband's pockets.
About my husband's pockets.
Yeah.
Look, it's funny. As soon as you say that, all I can think about is the things I find in the laundry. I don't know. I don't know if it's a man thing or just my man thing, where it doesn't matter what I say. There's always like things in the pockets when I go to do laundry. And so now I have a new motto that if I find money in those pockets, I get to keep it.
Ooh, that's
That's
fantastic.
the rule. Yep. If I find money in the pockets, I get to keep it. And so everybody knows, like, I don't mind doing the laundry. We kind of do our breakup of, chores a different way. But I do the laundry because I'm here. So I do it between meetings. Right now we have laundry going. And then everybody's responsible for putting it away. But by the time they get it back, anything that you left there is gone because I've collected it. So I make a good living off of what's in my husband's pockets. I'll be honest. And it makes me happy. I don't think he misses it. He never asked. But yeah, he's probably looking for 20s or 30, $5 here and there, and that's his business. But I collect it. So like I don't know if that really answers that question, but that's
Well,
what I thought about.
I actually saw something on an interview that you did where you were talking about the fact that you don't understand why men have cargo pockets and all these pockets for all the stuff that thing,
Yes.
and women have no pocket. And I'm sitting here with a pair of leggings on. There's no pockets in these things. You couldn't put anything anywhere. If you don't have a bra to stuff in, where are
Yes.
women supposed to put all this stuff?
It's
It's crazy.
crazy. It is so crazy. And it's funny because I think about that. I was at a convention this past weekend and none of my outfits had pockets. I was like, like really no pockets in anything. So I was toting around a purse, all like a big purse all weekend when I really just wanted like my debit card and my phone. But I didn't have any pockets. I was like, oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I
so funny.
remember.
You really did do research.
Well, I remember in my condo in Calgary, because I'm actually on the east. I'm in Ottawa, so just straight north of you. But I'm from Calgary. I live in Calgary on the other coast. And one of the girls was in my high rise. She's an avid runner, but she's a double A, and she doesn't have places where things can. And so she had gone through three, the swipe cards to get into hotel rooms and high rises and start your electronic key. And she'd like been charged because she'd lost three of them because she had nowhere to put stuff. And I said, well, why don't you just, oh, I never thought about that. But I tend to stick my stuff down here because I got
I
my
do too.
pockets are up here.
I did because by the end of the conference, I was like one debit card here, ID there, and I was done. I
Yeah,
was done.
exactly. No cargo pants or pockets for women. For
That's not
women.
fair.
So
Injustice.
it is all those things that we could create ideas out of. So we're coming up to the time. So I want to give you a little bit of a time to tell people, who do you help? How do you help them? Tell us about your business a little bit.
All right, so the business is called the new business that we actually shouldn't even say new. We've been in business for about 4 or 5 years, but it's called IROC Marketable Business Solutions. We're based in Virginia, but we service people, like I said, all over. And who do we serve? We service small business owners, but mostly service based and mostly women. And I say mostly because we definitely have worked with men, we definitely have worked with product-based businesses. But if you look at the strategies and the tips and the services we offer, they do lend themselves mostly to like coaches and consultants. So I just like to kind of be upfront with that. How do we help them? Well, we do it in two different ways. We have a coaching side to our business, which we call the Done With You services, where we work hand in hand. It's a very white glove service, very intimate setting, and we help you through discovering where your target audience is, who do you want to work with. We also help you with deciding what offers you're going to make, and then of course how to market and sell those offers to your target audience. On the other side of the business, we have our marketing side, which is our done for you, where you can come and just order a website or a logo or a video editing service or social media management or VA services, and the list goes on and on. But we use that side so that if you are struggling to build out your team, maybe you don't have the time, the money, or the know-how, you're able to come and get a team of people who've already been vetted to do the work for you. And it's great because with a lot of our packages, you actually get a little bit of coaching so that if you don't know how to do, what you need, we can kind of talk through that and make sure that you're getting the result that you want. So it's really a one-stop shop for anybody trying to do business on a budget, because that's kind of the premise. Because I know that when I started business, because of the way I started business, I didn't have a lot of money and I needed to find affordable solutions. So we are your affordable one-stop shop for small business owners.
So do you find when people come to you, that is one of their biggest challenges, is that they're looking through a money mindset perspective, that everything feels expensive to them?
Absolutely. And they typically don't know, right? You jump out and say, I want to have a business, but you don't even know what things typically run. And I've had coaches or people I work with that are like, oh, well, they're too cheap to pay for you, then leave them alone. But what I find is that money is a finite thing. And I know some people are like, well, if you really wanted to invest, but because I work with women who typically have kids, whether they are grown or in the home, they don't have the luxury of just saying, well, I'm gonna bet on myself, spend all my money, and sleep on the couch. Because where are their kids gonna sleep? Who's going to pay for dinner? You know what I mean? And so I'm very much aware of the realistic things that hold us, because I had a kid, I had car payment. Like, I don't know your research, but I actually got my car repoed like twice back in the early days. It was crazy. So I'm not going to tell people that they don't want their dream enough if they don't have money. I am honest and say this is what I recommend for you, and I give them price points. And I would say I recommend doing this first if you can't do it all now. And most of my clients I retain because we'll start where they need the most help, and then as they have those pieces, they make more money and are able to invest in the other items they need, which is great. And we actually have a lot of free resources as well, because it's not fair that there's not access to everyone. Right? People need the information to make those informed decisions. So we do a lot of free things, like we have free trainings every Monday. We have blogs, we have LinkedIn articles, we have podcasts. Actually, we have a book coming out that'll be a low cost investment. But we have a lot of free information, and then we have a lot of low cost things all the way up into our high ticket for our multi six figure business owners who are just needing that extra team member for support.
Thank you so much about talking about that. And yes, I've also had two cars repossessed.
We got that in common.
I think when you dig into all the research, you'll find that most everybody that has been in business for a long period of time, if you dig back far enough, one car, two car, almost everybody. It's like a badge that comes. It's the decision that says, you know what? Wrong financial decision. Let's learn from that. Go to make another choice. Move forward.
Absolutely. My first year of business, I paid that car off. I got tired of worrying. Every time I looked out the window, I was like, is my car still there? So that was the first thing I did. First year earnings, I paid off that car.
Yeah, because it's very difficult to build a business when you're trying to look out the front window and hope it's still there, because your attention is all
It was
mucked up.
scary. I would see like the water guy come by and I'm like, oh my God, did I pay the water bill? Like, is electricity off? Is it just my electricity or is it everybody else's? It was rough for those first, that first little bit.
Yep. There's a line in do you watch Undercover Billionaire, Glenn Stearns? When he was the first one that did Undercover Billionaire, and he has a quote in there that says, you cannot build a business from survival mode. And it's so true, because if you're all, it's just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're trying to figure out, how you're going to buy the meals, how you're going to pay the heat, how you're going to, those basic 3 levels first, you have no bandwidth left. And yes, it's possible. It takes a very, very long time, but it's challenging. So you've got to get those pieces in first. I really want to thank you so much for coming on. We'll have all your contact information. Just let people know how they can get a hold of you into the show notes.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for even having me on the podcast. This has been such a great conversation. If anyone wants to connect with me, you definitely can look me up, Fonville Foster, or at IROC, Marketable Business Solutions. You can catch us on pretty much all the social media platforms. And a lot of times it's me actually talking back to you. So don't be shy. Connect with me, ask questions, and join our free community so that you can start building your entrepreneurial journey today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cori.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful week. I hope you enjoyed this episode. To reach Cori and her team through their website, you can go to IROC marketablebusinesssolutions.com. That's IROC marketablebusinesssolutions.com, or on Instagram, IROC MBS, all the acronyms, and on LinkedIn, she's Cori Fonville Foster. So Cori and as always, Fonville, this is Debbie Colburn. You know where you're listening, and we're over on LinkedIn -MS